Hello and welcome to Carnivore Wellness. My name is Rebecca. Today I want to talk about the gentle approach to transitioning to carnivore. I call it the crowd out approach. I've discussed this in previous videos and referenced it, so in this video I wanted to break down exactly what that looks like week by week over the course of a 5-week period. Let's jump right in. Week 1, start by including meat with each meal. This is a key component of crowding out in this crowd out approach. Add meat to each meal. If perhaps you have meals, especially breakfast, where you're not eating meat, perhaps you're instead having, some granola or oatmeal or toast or something like that. Add meat to each and every meal throughout the day. Increase the fat and the meat portions of your meals while decreasing the fruits and vegetables and other side components of your meals. Also, in this first week, this is a big challenge, but I want you to try to eliminate all added sugars and grains. Those are your processed foods, your pastas, your breads, crackers, cakes, pastries. Get those grains, get the sugars out of there. The sooner you do that, the better off you will be. So continue to include all sorts of whole foods, your fruit, vegetables, legumes, seeds for the time being. But add meat to the plate and drop those processed foods and get those grains out of there as soon as you can. That will be a great place to start, and that will go a long way towards helping get you started in crowding out other foods that are non-carnivore foods in your approach to adopting a carnivore diet. Also, in this first week, which I think will happen naturally as you start to crowd out foods, the aim is to decrease your fiber amount by about 25%. And that will be a recurring theme each and every week as we slowly taper down the amount of fiber as you progress towards a carnivore diet. All right, week 2. Make one meal each day a fully carnivore meal. So pick a meal. For many, it's easiest to pick breakfast. You can have bacon and eggs. There you go. Very traditional breakfast food and totally carnivore in and of itself. So pick one meal a day, and it can vary, throughout the week. You can try out different meals, but make sure one meal each and every day is a totally carnivore meal without any of the other sides or components that would make up your meals traditionally. In this way, this will allow you to crowd out the other non-carnivore foods and experiment with what it feels like to have a meal that is solely based around carnivore foods. Now, you can do things like, bacon, eggs, a meaty omelet, sausage links or patties, egg muffins or chaffles, which are cheesy egg waffles. There are a lot of great staples that carnivores can use to kind of enhance their food and still keep it fun and provide variety, without necessarily having to sacrifice that desire to have that change up in what they eat each and every day. So start with one meal each and every day for the second week to keep that meal entirely carnivore. And this will allow you to slowly, again, decrease your fiber by another 25%. So we want to try and slowly taper that fiber down over the course of several weeks. In this week, starting in week 2, I want you to make all of your snacks carnivore snacks. That way, if you do find that you need a little extra energy or, you find yourself getting hungry between meals, turn to carnivore foods as your go-to foods in those moments. Some suggestions of carnivore snacks would be some plain yogurt, cottage cheese, beef jerky, hard-boiled eggs, some prosciutto, bacon, sausage, smoked salmon, really cheeses of any type. All of those are carnivore foods, and they will make great snacks for you as you progress. All right, week 3, cruising right along. Make 2 meals each day, fully carnivore meals. Now, you can experiment with which 2 meals you want to make carnivore. Perhaps you want to try breakfast and dinner, and maybe you still keep your lunch meal the same. But either way, I want you to make sure that you now make 2 meals each and every day, fully carnivore meals, and continue to keep that snack. If you need a snack in between meals, continue to keep snacks carnivore as well. That will go a long way towards helping further decrease your fiber intake by another 25%. Again, a slow taper on the fiber is going to help allow for a gentle transition as your body is now increasing the amount of fats and proteins from animal sources and decreasing that, steady intake of fiber. So that will help. Some more fat-rich snacks that you can include: bacon, cheese, prosciutto, fried slices of beef fat. You can get those trimmings from the butcher and fry those up, or crisp them up in the air fryer. They're delicious. And of course, what I like to call our butter sandwiches, where you can take 2 pieces of cheese with a little pat of butter sandwiched in between, or 2 pieces of bacon, a little pat of butter in between. Eat your butter sandwiches, get that little fatty snack, and that will help carry you over to the next meal, which potentially might be a carnivore meal. So in week 3, 2 meals plus snacks need to all be carnivore. You can still have your third meal that includes other whole foods. Again, at this point, we don't have any more of the processed foods or grains in your diet at this time. All right, now week 4. This is where we're kicking it up. Make all 3 meals fully carnivore. This means you can have dairy in all forms. You can have all sorts of meats. There is no limit on what you can eat as long as it is an animal-based carnivore food. So heavy whipping cream, sour cream, cream cheese, full fat plain yogurt, cottage cheese, kefir, milk, all varieties of cheese. Many of these dairy products still contain carbohydrates, and the body will turn those carbohydrates into sugar for energy. But they're coming from carnivore-friendly foods, so they're not being ingested alongside those health-depleting non-carnivore anti-nutrients that the body finds really inflammatory. That said, dairy can be inflammatory to some people, but as you are transitioning, you're just trying to transition gently, and keeping that variety in is really, really helpful for compliance. And again, keep all snacks carnivore. At this point, you've gotten 3 meals a day to be carnivore. Your snacks are carnivore. Fiber is now pretty much non-existent in the diet. If, however, you have come from a heavily plant-based, fiber-rich diet, you may still need a little more time here to hang out with the fiber. Perhaps you've kept in just a little bit because you don't want to reduce by more than 25% each and every week. In reducing your fiber slowly, coming from a plant-based, fiber-rich diet, you can slowly taper, and I would just recommend that every 2 to 3 days you decrease that fiber intake by a little bit more until you find that you have fully eliminated it. All right, moving into week 5. Here you go. You're already a carnivore, really and truly. You got to carnivore within 4 weeks, which is a nice, gentle transition, slowly decreasing fiber by 25% each and every week. Hopefully you've been tackling some of those cravings that you might still have lingering around because of those non-carnivore foods that have remained in, by replacing those instead with nice, rich, fatty meats, fatty snacks, like we've talked about. You're carnivore at week 5. But there may still be a little bit of tweaking that you want to do to help optimize your carnivore diet. So this is the time when it would make sense to be mindful of the carb-containing carnivore-friendly foods. By and large, that's going to be your dairy. That's really the biggest source of carbs on a carnivore diet. There are some carbs in seafood, and there are some in eggs, both of which are totally fine to continue to include. But the dairy tends to pack a bit more of a punch when it comes to carbohydrates on an animal-based diet. So, for example, a cup of milk has 11 grams of carbs. That's pretty significant, and it will spike your insulin, and of course, that can do one of 2 things. It will store more energy on your body and prevent the release of fat for energy, which, is counterintuitive for a lot of those who are seeking to have body recomposition results on this way of eating. And then also any increase in insulin. If your insulin is, if you're insulin resistant, if you have signs of high insulin consistently, that will increase your cortisol. Of course, that translates into inflammation, can disrupt hormones. It's really important to make sure that you lower carbs over time so that you can lower your insulin, lower your cortisol, lower the inflammation that your body experiences, so that you can really lean into the healing power of this anti-inflammatory carnivore way of eating. So be mindful of the dairy, decrease the dairy in this 5th and final week, and, still include it, especially if that variety helps you, maintain compliance, but just be mindful of where you are including it. Perhaps lean less on the dairy and really start to focus more on eating the fatty meats. Eat ruminant meat, from bison or lamb or beef. Those are going to be a lot more satiating. So now that you've gotten pretty much all carnivore foods into your diet, it's time to just tweak a little bit. Make sure that you're really optimizing for your health by giving yourself the most nutrient-dense foods of those that are carnivore. Another thing to be aware of during this time is processed meats, pork rinds, and possibly eggs. So let's talk about that. Processed meats are great for, on-the-go snacks if you need to stay carnivore. Things like summer sausage or salami or, your deli meats or pepperonis. those things can be great tools to have in, especially as you're transitioning into carnivore. They provide variety, a little things are taste a little bit different. They're delicious, right? And so that's a double-edged sword because some of these foods can be hyperpalatable. But that's because they contain other additives. So really check your ingredients this week of the foods that you are still keeping in. Make sure there's not any hidden sugar in those meats. Things like dextrose, maltose, anything that ends in ose is actually sugar. And you also want to make sure there's not MSG in these things, monosodium glutamate, or, BHT, a preservative. That's really not great for you. So check your ingredient list and start to limit those foods. Taper those down. That's not really where you should be getting the bulk of your energy needs met on a carnivore diet. Really and truly, it's advisable to get that from meat, just the meat. So ruminant meats, pork, chicken, turkey, things like that, with a focus on the ruminant meat. And then pork rinds, okay, or even like little cheese wisps. You can find those in the grocery stores too, or even make them yourselves. Just be mindful of those little snacks. Like, yes, they are carnivore, and yes, they can be helpful, and they can go a long way towards jazzing up different recipes and stuff. Ground up pork rinds make a great panko for any kind of like fried breading substitute. But again, those can be hyperpalatable. They can lead to overeating, and they're just not the most ideal carnivore foods. Again, keep them in for compliance purposes. Keep them in for variety. I want you to enjoy what you're eating, but just know that just because they're carnivore doesn't necessarily mean that they are the very best for optimal health and healing. Again, the focus is on ruminant meat, fatty meat. And then lastly, eggs. I want to mention this because while eggs are a wonderful food on carnivore, some people find that they are not able to tolerate them as well as others. And for some, they can't tolerate the whole egg. But for others, it's really just the egg white that causes the problem. That egg white protein for some really results in some inflammation. So if you're struggling, it might be worth eliminating eggs for a bit of time and then reintroducing just the yolk to see how you respond to that, and then reintroducing the full egg, including the egg white. You might find that egg whites are a bit of an inflammatory thing for you. So just wanted to throw that out there, especially for new carnivores. You might come in and you're still experiencing some issues. It could be that you need to eliminate dairy. You could need to eliminate those processed foods, the processed meats, or perhaps the eggs could be problematic. All right, and then last two things I want to throw out there. You can consider taking your carnivore diet a bit more strict, and some people find good results with this. So one is to consider BBE. This way of eating was made popular by Dr. Ken Berry. God love him. The man has done so much for this carnivore community. Beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. BBBE. And I think he's added a caveat now that he would even throw in like some small fish, like sardines or things like that. So at this point, if you choose to eat beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, you're not including dairy other than the butter. And that can go a long way towards helping people, especially if they're having, issues with their insulin, issues with their blood sugar control, or if they want to see some fat loss results and some body recomposition. So now that you've become fully carnivore in this first 4 to 5 week time period, it might be time for you to consider taking a more strict approach, with that being in line with your health and wellness goals. Obviously, if you just want to eat as you are, including all animal-based foods, go for it. You do you. But if you really want to further the results that you might see, beef, butter, bacon, and eggs can be a great method to try and do that. And then the last kind of strict top tier carnivore approach is the lion diet. Now, this was made popular by Michaela Peterson Fuller. She went on ruminant meat and salt and water, and that was it. And even the salt is optional. So, really you're just eating ruminant meat. That is the least inflammatory food the body can process, and it is totally nutrient dense. It has everything that you need to function optimally. So if you want to try that, that is the ultimate elimination diet. Many people use the lion diet to help heal from really severe chronic conditions, especially autoimmune conditions. Being on a lion diet for, 6 months to a year plus can go a long way towards allowing the body to really heal on a much deeper, core level. And Then as folks continue, they might use that lion diet as their base, and then they can try slowly adding back in other carnivore foods to see how their body responds. Always, if you want to use that as an elimination diet, make sure you reintroduce these foods in small amounts, over the course of several days to a week before you move on to adding another food. Obviously, if you add back in a bunch of different types of foods, you're not really going to know which one in particular is causing any issue if you run into issues. So you can use it as an elimination diet. I will say that those who transition into a lion diet, there is still another transition period and process that takes place in going from a standard carnivore diet that includes, beef, butter, bacon, eggs, even possibly a little dairy, extra things like that, to dropping down to just that ruminant meat, salt and water. That process can take about 2 to 3 weeks for your hunger to adjust and your appetite to regulate, and for you to kind of regain that sense of vitality and energy. May take you longer than others, but just throwing that out there, if you want to experiment with that and take your commitment to carnivore just a little bit further and go more strict, you can do that, but just be patient with yourself and know that there may be a bit more of a transition in making that last and final step. Again, that is not required. You do not have to take the lion diet approach to get your carnivore card. Nobody's coming for you if you don't want to do that. Plenty of carnivores continue to eat all of the, carnivore rainbow, so to speak, and they enjoy a wide variety of foods and continue to experience wonderful healing and health and restoration. So that's totally possible. Again, in this video, I just wanted to walk you through what it would look like to slowly taper down the non-carnivore foods and slowly taper down the fiber, replace those foods with meat so that you crowd out the non-carnivore foods with the appropriate nutrient-dense carnivore foods. And over time, over the course of 4 to 5 weeks, transition into a carnivore diet. And then where you go from there is totally up to you. And of course, I would love to continue to support you in that. I have developed a Carnivore Wellness Community hosted on the Mighty Networks platform. So there's a link to that down below. You are welcome to join. There's a lot of free information and great resources to help you get started, stay committed, outline this plan in full detail, along with what to expect as you go along, to really give you the full faith and confidence and the step-by-step instructions of how to get started on carnivore with success and conviction. So if you're interested in that, please sign up for that community. It's free and available to all. If you want to take it a step further and increase your accountability, the support that you receive, and gain some more guidance, inspiration, hope from others in the carnivore community, you are welcome to sign up for the monthly commitment. And this space will allow you to participate in our weekly Zoom calls. Each week, I host 3 small group coaching calls, essentially where you can show up, share your experience, your stories, ask questions, get advice, really just kind of share in what it is to be a carnivore with fellow meat eaters who are also on their animal-based eating journeys. It's a great space to, feel supported and encouraged as we enjoy this healing, optimal way of eating. So I will link that down below. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. I will do another one coming up on the hardcore carnivore approach. So in previous videos, I've talked about this crowding out approach, which I've detailed here. And I also want to talk about the hardcore carnivore approach. I'll give you a hint. It's a lot more straightforward and very short, very simple. So stay tuned for that. If you would, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for spending this time with me.